From the moment she could remember, Emily Lawson lived under the weight of a name she barely knew. Her father, Colonel David Lawson, was more than just a decorated Air Force pilot. He was a national hero. His name was etched into military history, his bravery spoken of in whispers of admiration, and his sacrifice honored with medals she had never seen him wear. But to Emily, he was just a story, a legacy she never truly knew. She had spent her entire life chasing his shadow, believing that if she became the best pilot in the Air Force, she could somehow bridge the gap between them. But one day, a single question from President Donald Trump would shatter everything she believed and force her to ask herself, "Am I truly living for myself? Or am I just following a path someone else set for me?" This is the story of how one unexpected meeting changed Emily's life forever. Emily had been told who she was supposed to be before she ever had a chance to decide for herself. Growing up in a military family, she was surrounded by reminders of her father's legacy. Photographs of him in his flight suit, awards encased in glass, and stories of his bravery told by those who had served alongside him. But no matter how many times she heard them, none of it ever made up for the fact that she had never truly known him. People always said, "She'll follow in her father's footsteps. It's in her blood." And so she did. From the moment she was old enough to understand, she dedicated herself to aviation. She pushed herself harder than anyone, outperforming her peers, excelling in flight school, and earning the respect of her superiors. But the harder she worked, the emptier she felt. Because no matter how many accolades she received, no matter how many missions she completed, one question always haunted her. Would my father be proud of me? Emily's entire world shifted the day she received an unexpected order. A formal letter, sealed with the official White House insignia, was delivered to her base. "Lieutenant Emily Lawson, you are invited to the White House for a special ceremony recognizing the nation's most outstanding young officers." She should have felt honored. Instead, all she felt was doubt. Was she chosen because of her achievements? Or was she simply David Lawson's daughter? In the eyes of the world? Still, orders were orders. Days later, she found herself stepping out of a military vehicle in front of the White House, her uniform perfectly pressed, her posture as strong as ever. As she walked through the grand hallways, she felt the weight of history around her. But nothing could have prepared her for what came next. Just before the ceremony, a White House staffer approached her. "The President would like to meet with you privately before the event." Her breath caught. A private meeting with the President of the United States? She had no idea that what was about to happen would change her life forever. The Oval Office was everything she had imagined. Grand, powerful, yet intimidating. President Donald Trump sat behind the resolute desk, reviewing a file in front of him. When she stepped in, he looked up and offered a small smile. "Lieutenant Emily Lawson," he said. "Thank you for coming. Please, have a seat." She sat, keeping her posture rigid, every part of her training reminding her to stay composed. The President studied her for a long moment before speaking again. "I've read your record. You're one of the most promising officers in the Air Force. Top of your class, highest performance scores. That's impressive." Emily nodded. "Thank you, sir." Then he leaned forward slightly, his eyes sharper now. "But tell me something, Lawson. Why did you join the Air Force?" It was a simple question, one she had answered countless times before. "To serve my country, sir." President Trump nodded, but didn't look convinced. "Is that really why? Or is it because you've spent your entire life trying to be someone you think your father wanted you to be?" The words hit Emily like a punch to the chest. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Because for the first time, she didn't know the answer. She had always told herself she was doing this because she loved it, because she wanted to be the best. But had she ever truly asked herself if this was what she wanted? Or was she just trying to live up to a legacy that wasn't her own? The president continued, his tone firm but not unkind. You don't have to answer me today, Lieutenant. But I want you to think about it. The greatest leaders aren't the ones who try to fill someone else's shoes. They're the ones who create their own path. Emily left the Oval Office with her mind in turmoil, but her day was far from over. After the ceremony, a woman approached her, an older officer, her posture still strong despite the years etched into her face. Lieutenant Lawson, she said, her voice steady. I knew your father, and I have something for you. Emily frowned. You knew my father? The woman nodded. I was with him on his final mission. Before he left, he gave me something he wanted you to have. With trembling hands, the woman reached into her jacket and pulled out a small, weathered envelope. It's a letter from your father. To you. Emily stared at the envelope, her heart pounding. She had spent her entire life trying to understand the man behind the uniform, searching for any piece of him that felt real. And now, in her hands, was his final message. Did she have the courage to read it? That night, Emily sat alone in her room, staring at the letter for what felt like hours before finally unfolding it. The ink had faded, but the words were strong. My dearest Emily, if you're reading this, it means I didn't come home. And for that, I am sorry. More than anything, I wanted to watch you grow up, to be there for you. But if there is one thing I need you to know, it is this. You do not have to follow my path to honor me. You do not need to live in my shadow. You only need to be yourself. Tears streamed down Emily's face as she read the final lines. Do what makes you happy, Emily. Not because the world expects it of you, but because it's what you truly want. And if you ever feel lost, look up at the sky. I will always be there. For the first time in her life, Emily realized she had a choice. She didn't have to prove anything to anyone. She only had to be herself. And that was enough. Emily Lawson's story is not just about duty or legacy. It's about self-discovery. She spent her life chasing a shadow, only to realize she was never meant to follow someone else's path. True strength isn't about proving yourself to others. It's about finding the courage to be yourself. Have you ever felt pressured to live up to someone else's expectations? Have you ever questioned the path you're on? Let us know in the comments below.